Yes. This video was chosen through an extremely close YouTube community poll, so if you want to have a say in the next one, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. Sonic Superstars is a game that very well should have been an easy win. Well, if they got the Mania guys, it really would have been easy, but can't do anything like that, or rather let them go bankrupt. But either way, 2D Sonic has stagnated for a long while, with Mania being a good next step, but still never really growing into its own. The last 2D Sonic game that really tried something new and was good was Sonic Rush Adventure from 2008. God. And even then, that's a contentious title. All people wanted was a Sonic game that was fresh and fun. No more Sonic 4 blandness, no more reusing levels, just something new and exciting. And that seemed to be the goal here. Sonic Team put this game in a really interesting position, as they were focusing on multiplayer in the forefront, which has never been done in a mainline Sonic game before. Multiplayer had been in games before, to varying degrees of success, but this was the focal point of Sonic Superstars, and it's what I was most excited for. Experiencing a new, great multiplayer Sonic game with my good pal Mike? What more could a man want?
Superstars multiplayer components are far worse options than anything in the past Sonic games.
You will despawn, having to constantly press back in.
For this, and we couldn't stomach more than an hour. Sonic Superstars multiplayer is an afterthought.
I appreciate Sonic trying to do multiplayer, but this is Sonic. Of course it's going to end up being a disaster.
This is not a multiplayer Sonic game. This is a Sonic game with multiplayer. Don't get that wrong. Ignore what the ad showed you. Ignore all the press releases. Ignore the front of the box. This is a single player game that I played multiplayer, and it did not work. My biggest concern when I first saw this game's concept was how exactly they would handle the camera. 2D Sonic has always been pretty fast, so how would they be able to achieve that while also providing an enjoyable experience for both players involved? Well, remember Sonic 2 multiplayer? You know, where one person played the game and the other showed up every so often? That is the better experience of Sonic Superstars. No, I'm not kidding. This is terrible. At least in Sonic 2 you knew what to expect. The camera would always focus on Sonic no matter what. Here, it just does whatever it wants. Sometimes it follows the player in front, sometimes it follows the one in the back. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it. It is a constant tug of war for control, but with parties that are fully cooperative. For a game that is quite clearly trying to go for the whole new Super Mario Bros. Thing, you think they would have at least tried to understand what made that multiplayer be able to function. The camera always followed the player that was further ahead, because, you know, that makes sense. And in a series like Sonic, that is pivotal to the game design. It has always been about trying to stay on the higher paths, conserving your speed. But this game just does not let that happen. More often than not, it follows the player who falls, which makes no sense. Higher in the level should always be considered further in the level. That is just basic 2D Sonic knowledge. But instead, they let the worst player determine the entire experience. It doesn't matter if you're flying with Tails or climbing with Knuckles or double jumping with Amy, you will always be dragged down by the other player, like an anchor to the floor. I'm glad they didn't go with a Mario Wonder Crown solution, but you can't do this free camera system without developing the proper tools for it. Never in my entire time playing this game did I get a grasp of how this camera operates, which is genuinely baffling. And this goes beyond just camera issues. These levels are not designed at all for multiplayer gameplay. There were so many moments where the other player is naturally just going to be left behind. Then it makes me question when exactly multiplayer was even added to this game at all. Pretty much every level has some kind of gimmick like this, and it makes any kind of multiplayer system totally untenable. But even then, with these moments removed, this still doesn't work. Sure, this is probably the biggest screen size 2D Sonic has ever seen, but the level is still designed like any other Sonic game, so it doesn't really matter. Unless you intentionally inch along across the stage together, there's no reasonable way for both players to have constant agency within these levels. Sometimes it's their turn to play, and sometimes it's your turn to play, with very little overlap. And I only played this 2-player. I can't even imagine how bad this would be with 4. Which is probably why they only showed off automated sections in all the trailers. Look, I know, 2D Sonic has always been fast, and hopefully always will be, so translating that to an entirely multiplayer experience is understandably difficult. There's a lot game design wise that has to be changed, and even then that's a gamble. But this is a product that costs money. Quite a lot of money, in fact. So I expect them to use that money to make a good video game. I thought this would go without saying, but these days, who knows? Bottom line, you cannot give us a single player Sonic game and pretend it's based around multiplayer. That is not okay. But you know what? Maybe I am just an idiot, right? How could they possibly make a 2D Sonic game that works with multiplayer? That makes no sense. I'm expecting too much. We can never have a game like that. Yep, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Knuckles Chaotix did this better. That game is also a 2D multiplayer Sonic game, and guess what? It's actually multiplayer. Opinions on it aside, the co-op is the focus here. It was all about working with your partner to get through stages, conquer platforming challenges, and build up speed together. Might have been ultimately pretty unfun in the end, but at least it tried. It tried to be a multiplayer game. It tried to do something new. None of which I could say about Sonic Superstars. Okay, to be fair, there is another main selling point behind this game, and it's one I think is great. Each Chaos Emerald collected now gives your team a new special ability that can be used at any time within each level. This is an amazing idea that gives the Chaos Emeralds a new context beyond just reaching that lucky number 7. This could have easily have become a Mega Man type situation, where the game becomes eminently replayable thanks to all these applications the powers have. This is a system that's so inherently Sonic, I'm surprised we've never seen it before. The groundwork was there. All they had to do was follow it. Does this sound familiar? Well, first of all, unlike Mega Man, once you use one of these, you're locked into it for about 15 seconds. You can skip the timer and disable it, but it makes the power go away completely until the next checkpoint. This is a massive limitation and really hurts any pertinence these powers could have had. Why limit them like this? Why not have them use ring energy or something? It would have given the rings any reason at all for existing. Second problem, if you get hurt while using any of these powers, they're just over. And you can't use them again. Why? Why do that? It's not enough punishment I got hit, you also gotta take my toys away too? Third problem, and maybe it's just me, but these take way too long to enable. First you gotta trigger the wheel, then scroll slowly to your power, then press X, and then finally you have your power. It takes so much time and leaves no room for spontaneity. But okay, maybe the powers are just that good, and are super useful, and fully justify all these restrictions. Well, come back to Red's Super Amazing Power Review. This one's fine, I guess. The idea is that a bunch of clones come out and kill enemies for a short time. And I mean, yeah, it does that, but I don't really see the purpose. It's not like there's any hard enemies in this game, or even a lot of enemies in general, so this pretty much only gets used during bosses when I'm too scared to hit them directly. I think maybe a better solution would have been the power from Mega Man X4, where you have just one clone right in front of you that serves as both a shield and a way to dish out damage. I just can't see a real reason to use this one outside of bosses, and as a first power-up, it sets a bad precedent. This one's actually pretty good. It basically lets you fly around the stage, which really comes in handy for characters like Sonic. But even for the others, this one is still really fast, so you can get a lot of mileage out of it. It's both exploration and speed heavy, which is exactly the kind of power-up I want to see from this series. And thus ends the good power-ups in this game. This one is completely worthless. On paper, it's cool. You could see stuff that's hidden in levels, which could have been like that room scan ability from Metroid, giving you the opportunity to scan around your environment to find secrets. Or even during a boss fight, if you're about to die, maybe you could turn on the vision power-up and find some spare rings. That is not what they do with this though. Every time there is a chance to use the vision power-up, the game tells you. This happens sometimes with the other power-ups too, which is annoying, but this is the most egregious. This isn't me using it creatively to find secrets. This is just the game giving me rewards for nothing. This one has no point, and it really disappoints me because it could have so easily been great and fleshed out the way you interact with the world, but instead, it's stuck being entirely situational. Did someone say situational? I like the idea behind this one too. You could use it to go up streams of water and swim better, but only one level has streams of water in it, in which you can't even get this power up because you're only allowed to collect one emerald per stage. It is helpful when you're in the water, but there's also only one water stage in the game. If this also had another use to it, like maybe being able to slip through cracks because you're made of fluid, then I'd be fine with this. But again, it is entirely situational.
Greg.
This is just the bullet, but slow. so use Tails or Knuckles instead. Seriously, this one has no other use. If they didn't limit power-ups in such a stupid way, I would always be picking Bullet over this one.
Look at the time!
This is another one that's a great idea, as you're able to slow down time, giving you more of an advantage in precarious situations. The problem is you can only activate it once before it goes away forever, so you really have no room to use it in many creative ways. To compare this to Mega Man again, which I mean sorry, but you're asking for it, they quite literally had a system just like this in Mega Man 12. But there, you had freedom to use the time slow ability as you pleased, and it greatly affected how you interacted with the game as a whole, which is exactly what these Emerald powers should have been. Making these so situational is no different than just having them be fixed to the stages they're useful in. Remember that stupid gimmick in Death Egg where you whizzed around all over the place and it only existed in that one stage? Well, that's basically half the powers in this game. Seriously, it's no different, and that's why— Oh, thanks for reminding me, how could I forget? There's also this extra power. Once you get all the Chaos Emeralds, not only is super powers unlocked, but also this move, which is entirely useless. So yeah, those are the powers. All in all, they are bad. And that's about all this game really tries to do to shake up the formula. Unless you count these 2D animated cutscenes, which are nice, but don't really hold up the game very much, and there's not very many of them anyway. These have been associated with classic Sonic for a while now, and while I do feel they're a bit too cutesy, I do really enjoy the overall aesthetic of them. I'm fine if they continue to be a part of classic Sonic's identity. Though, it makes me question, why not make the game look like this? As it is, this game is ugly. I don't think I have to expand on that. And the worst part is, this presentation doesn't really have any reason behind it. This is a 3D game solely because that is what's easiest to make, not because that's how it should look. Generations 2D Sonic had tons of cool camera angle changes supporting it, and other 2.5D games at the very least have a concrete style behind them. If you're going to be pushing to make this style synonymous with 2D Sonic, you should just make it be 2D Sonic. Imagine how beautiful a game like that would look. I know it might seem like I'm asking for a lot, and these are outrageous expectations. It is hard to make a game that is entirely done in a hand-drawn style like this. But guess what?
That's what the money is for!
For a product this expensive, I would at the very least expect it to look somewhat good, not being solely reserved to these story-based cutscenes. Which also, by the way, I have no idea what story they were trying to tell. Stuff just kind of happens. The only clue we're given is this goofy dragon drawing. Seriously, what's going on here? Why are you fat? The same could be said for the older games' stories too. But you know what those also had? Manuals that actually told you what was going on, no matter how seemingly little plot there was actually in the game. And Sonic Superstars does have a manual too, albeit an online one, but it doesn't tell you anything about the story, or anything important at all. Advice: proceed to Bridge Island. Oh really? The first zone? Think I should play that one? Really? Why does this whole product reek of being unfinished? Why are there so many game-breaking glitches? Why is every boss so broken? Why would I ever care about your stupid battle mode? There is simply nothing here to distract me from how much of a disappointment Sonic Superstars is. I thought this was going to be a multiplayer game for the ages, but instead, I was given a product I would never try to play with other friends, purely out of embarrassment. And guess what? This review goes beyond multiplayer, because the game forced me to play by myself as well. Yeah, there are these random stages throughout the game that make you play alone for no reason, so sorry to your friend who wants to play too, you gotta watch. And playing these levels, seeing the way the game was intended to be experienced, made me realize something. This game isn't that bad. It's very whatever. This is a two-dimensional Sonic game made for a modern generation, and it doesn't try to be any more than that. You got your green hills, you got your casinos, you got your grand ending in space. This is a by-the-books 2D Sonic experience. And for many, that's fine. I could definitely see people enjoying this game, especially younger kids. If you're able to look past all its clear issues, it delivers a fun enough time to those who want to seek it. So what's the use in complaining? Well, to that I ask, is that what a new 2D Sonic game should be? An acceptable experience that doesn't try to shake anything up? A game that does what all the rest do? Because, if I recall, that's never been what Sonic was supposed to be. Sonic was cool, he was fast and new. Each game brought something different to the table and provided a heightened experience to what came before. This was a legitimate series that kept being built up, rather than stripped down. I may personally prefer Sonic's 3D outings, but there's no denying that the consistency brought on by its earlier years is what carries the series to this day. The outrage for Sonic 4 didn't solely come from that game being bad, it's because it was called Sonic 4. And yet, in reality, it was just a middling mobile game in disguise. And this is why I do actually think Sonic Superstars is that bad. Because they had a legitimate chance here. This game was developed while Sonic was at his peak with box office hits and Frontiers selling millions. This was the time to make that Sonic the Hedgehog 4 we all deserved, with them building upon the formula and providing a new great expansion to what we all know is 2D Sonic. But that's not what happened. This game would rather regurgitate the same gameplay design we've had for over 30 years, with no big change-ups to speak of, rather providing limitations. They might have added Amy, but so did Sonic Advance 20 years ago. They might have added a new character, but so does every other 2D Sonic game. There may be advertised new features, but they are unrefined and underdeveloped. All this game truly has is its advertised superstars. There's Sonic, there's Tails, there's Knuckles, there's Eggman, there's Amy, there's Fang, there's all your favorites in this game. So buy it. What does it matter that it's less tightly designed, technically sound, and visually appealing than what came before? These are your Sonic superstars. So why ask for anything else?